So China's second largest port in the eastern city of Ningbo halted operations on Wednesday after an employee tested positive for coronavirus. The shutdown could add more pressure to strained global supply chains. Chinese ports are still working to recover from a typhoon in July and the shutdown of the Yantian port in May after a coronavirus infection. The Ningbo port is particularly crucial to global trade, handling 19 million shipping containers so far this year through July. And for more on that story, let's bring in Fabian Kretschmer, journalist in Beijing. Good to have you with us, Fabian. How serious are these new COVID-19 outbreaks in China?
That's a very interesting question. Actually, if you only look at the absolute numbers, then the outbreaks don't seem dangerous at all, because you have maybe 100 local infections on a daily basis and 1.4 billion Chinese people living in the country. But it's the first time since roughly a year that an infection cluster has spread from north to south. Basically, more than half of the provinces have registered infections. And just one case is enough for the authorities to shut down a whole port because they have a really very strict zero COVID strategy. Just in the last days, I visited one of the residential compounds here in Beijing that was also sealed off only because of one case. And there are roughly 24 high-rise apartment buildings. So tens of thousands of people cannot leave their buildings only because of one infection. So, yeah, it's definitely very serious in that regard.
Right. I mean, you just mentioned Beijing's zero-COVID strategy. While, of course, it is commendable to try and curb the spread of the virus as soon as possible, it must have an impact on the Chinese economy.
Yeah, that's a very complex question, because last year the zero-COVID strategy turned out to be very successful also for the economy. I mean, China was growing because you had a virus-free zone, so to speak, within the country. Factories could work at normal capacity. You had a complete supply chain in the country. However, the pandemic, it's not a 100-meter sprint, it's a marathon. And the strategy that was successful last year can be a burden now, because the economic costs are much higher. Now you have the Delta mutation, and the risk, despite the very strict quarantine system of local infections and also local infections that spread throughout the whole country, are much higher. And for every case, you have to shut down a factory, you have to shut down a port. In May, for example, they had to shut down the Yantian port near Shenzhen, and that was basically the biggest incident disrupting global supply chains that had a bigger impact even than the incident at the Suez Canal. So at some point, it will become a problem. However, they are trapped in this strategy, not only because they don't trust their domestically produced vaccines, also because of the political propaganda. Last year, they already propagated the victory against the virus, and now that rhetoric leaves them not so much space for an exit strategy.
Right, so the virus is not playing ball there. Fabian Kretschmer in Beijing, thank you so much. And of course, we all know when China sneezes, the whole world is catching the flu. So Konrad Busen joining me in Frankfurt now. What does all of this mean for businesses and for consumers here in Europe?
Well, Monica, I can tell you what it means. I went to an IKEA store last week, not on business, but, you know, to shop for stuff. And about 1/3 of the products that an IKEA store in Germany usually sells is not available. And the staff told me that the things are either stuck on a container ship somewhere between China and Germany, or when somewhere in the world a factory has a corona case, it often closes down immediately, so it can't deliver. So we're really talking about ripple effects in the global supply chains here. Should Germany try to become more independent from all this? A majority of economists here in Germany are convinced that this is not a viable way. You know, not buying stuff from China would make consumer prices much higher here in Germany. And let's not forget, Germany's economy is one of the most interconnected worldwide. The exporters need the global supply and delivery chains.
All right, a lot at stake there. Konrad Busen in Frankfurt, thank you so much.